Does traditional education deliver or fall short in educating and nurturing children? Introducing Aligned Learning Revolution, the show that confronts conventional norms and presents dynamic alternatives to transform education. Host Kohila Sivas tackles the foundational issues within classroom walls and advocates for holistic learning opportunities. It's time to reveal the strength of the innovative, holistic neurogrowth learning approach that goes beyond conventional teaching or tutoring methods, assuring every learner of a stress-free learning journey to unlock their fullest potential. Now, join Kohila Sivas.
It's an absolute delight to introduce our guest today, Lisa Ann Finley. Lisa Ann is not just a middle school math and science teacher with 15 years of experience, but she is also a certified holistic neurogrowth learning success coach and the founder of Pathways to Potential coaching practice. She has a bachelor's degree in middle childhood education and a dual master's in teacher leadership and curriculum instruction and design. Lisa Ann's educational background speaks volume about her commitment to excellence. But Lisa Ann's journey is even more remarkable because she is a devoted mother to 2 neurodivergent children, a role that has given her a profoundly unique perspective on the world of education. As she navigates the challenges of ADHD in her own life, she's transformed it into a strength that fuels her coaching approach. Today, Lisa Ann is on a mission that aligns perfectly with her passion, guiding capable students who may be facing challenges and ensuring that they unlock their full potential. It's a pleasure to have her today on the show. Welcome, Lisa. Hello, Lisa. Thank you for being here today.
Hello, Kohila. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So, Lisa, you have been a teacher for over 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
You taught math, science in your classrooms. Tell me about what made you want to leave that position.
All right. Well, I have loved being in the classroom, connecting with my students. And over the years working with students, I realized that my superpower and what I'm really good at is helping those students who don't really understand why they're struggling. Students who have ADHD and don't understand what their brain needs and what their individual needs are. I was getting the feedback that I was really, really great with those kids. And I dove into it. And that's the part of my job that I enjoyed the most. And it's also the part of my job as an educator that I think has the greatest impact on children and their future success. So if I can help a student learn how to learn how to manage, learn how to advocate, learn what they need to be successful, it doesn't matter what they go into. They can go into anything. They'll have choices. So when I found out that there was a way that I could focus on that with more students, for really truly focus and not be distracted by mandated curriculums and testing and books to get through, I could really focus on the part of teaching that I loved and that I was the best at.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For sure. So you wanted to have a very customized, specialized programs for your students, which is not possible in the classroom.
Exactly. I function from the perspective of everybody. It has children's best interests in mind. Everybody wants to do these wonderful things. Teachers are working very, very hard in the classroom, trying to teach a system to 30 kids at one time when teachers know they just can't. It's impossible. That each kid needs some little tweaks and something different. And even the best teachers, it's so hard to do that with those individual kids. So by working with kids one-on-one, they really create these great systems that they can keep up with. And I've even had kids tell other kids some suggestions. So I might be reaching more kids than I realize.
That's beautiful. So in the bio that I was reading, that you have said that you have ADHD yourself. Mm-hmm. And tell me how you shared this with your students, and this was not something the administrators liked
Okay, yes. After it had my boss and administrators had made some comments about how I'm pretty good with these kids and parents are noticing, I shared that it was because I had those same struggles and I was not diagnosed until I was an adult. So what I used to do is I couldn't figure out why things were hard. So I would like make up what I would call mind games. Like I have to trick myself into doing something. And I was pretty good at it, but it was so frustrating and I didn't realize what I was doing or why I had to be doing it. Now I realize that those mind games are systems and then I can intentionally teach a child a system that will work and modify it for them. But it's hard to get a kid on board. They need to know why. They need to see the point and not just another adult telling them something that they should do when they've tried everything they've been told and it hasn't worked. So I shared with the students, I connected. I had great feedback and relationships with my students and their parents. But my administrators were not happy about that. I was told that I had shared inappropriate information and put it on the kids to accommodate me. And I chose to view it as I am connecting with, relating, and helping those students learn what would be harder to learn and take longer to learn without that connection, and creating the world to be a better place. There are neurodivergent people everywhere. Learning how to appropriately react and advocate for yourself is not telling somebody to make an accommodation. It's let's be good, understanding, accepting people.
Very important. And those are skills that every child should learn anyway. So, for those parents that are listening to our, conversation right now, how much did you bring into that relationship with that child? Because when you said you were like this, they weren't accommodating you. You made them understand what they're going through is normal as well. I have been through it, but guess what? I created systems. If you can create these systems, you can be doing well as well, and you can trick your brain, your mind to work for you. So that must have been hard hearing that. That's not what you wanted to hear.
Yeah, it was very challenging and very hard. And that's when I ultimately made the decision to leave the classroom, because I knew what I was doing and how I was doing it was what was best for kids. And kids needed that. You can go to the best schools with the best teachers, but without those fundamental skills that the best schools don't have the ability to customize, you're not going to reach your full potential.
And your kids were getting results. So isn't that the ultimate goal?
Yes, they were.
They are happy.
I've even had parents tell me that I've restored peace in their house, because there's the stress and the fighting over the homework every day after school just isn't there anymore. They get to have family moments after school. They get to be the parents and enjoy dinner and not have to fight and be their teacher. They're obviously, parents are an extremely important part of their child's educational journey. And that's making sure that there's someone who can equip them with these skills and be on them and hold them accountable.
And for parents listening now, what would be your tip? Because sometimes parents think that, the word you used was boss, my boss. That's something that I want parents to understand, that for a teacher, there are so many bosses in the school level, right? There's so many of them that you have to pass through. When you're doing something creative and when you're doing something working, and because of some reason they feel like it's not appropriate, you have to stop. And that's your creativity being crushed. And you can see the results and it's being crushed. And you have no control. So I want parents to understand what some teachers go through in the system, where their hands are tied to try new innovative ways.
Yes, that is very true. So much of knowing what I should do because it's what's right and what I'm allowed to do or what I have to do often don't align. I have sat in parent-teacher conference meetings with the parent thinks they're telling me things I don't know, and they have a problem with it, and I agree with everything they're saying. I just can't do anything about it in that position. But in this position, I can do that. If a kid needs something, I can do that, which is why it can be difficult to share with others what I do, because I do whatever is needed.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I'm not a tutor. I don't just teach math. Maybe the child needs help in math. So we're going to learn these skills that are needed, and we'll use math to do it and learn everything, do whatever, learn the skills that are needed.
Yes. So let me backtrack and let the audience know that Lisa has decided, you know, 1 year ago now, right? You decided that you would leave the system.
Yes.
Yeah.
Last February. So we're coming up on a year.
Less than a year. And she decided to become a holistic neurogrowth learning success coach. And that's what she's explaining now, how she has been empowered. She has the empowerment. You have empowerment to do what is needed for each child in an individualized basis to their uniqueness, to their unique learning abilities. So tell me how this has changed your life, and what are you enjoying most about being in this business that you own?
That's a hard question to answer for what I'm enjoying the most. I am more passionate about what I do than I've ever been. And I went into education very passionate. And the system took away a lot of that passion. But I love it because the text messages I get from a parent about how their kid's bragging and is so excited about how much math work they got done, or a parent thanking me because their kid's now passing their math class. It's just, it's a sense of I'm doing what I went into teaching to do. It is also, I love to be creative and have new ideas. And this really allows me to live and thrive on that, instead of having to prove and ask for approval and then have to modify and change. I get to be creative. I get to use my brain in creative ways and then teach children how to do that.
Absolutely. So if I'm a parent right now watching or hearing this, I'm thinking, so what is the difference? I mean, it sounds like tutoring. I mean, I'm sure you get that a lot of time too, right? That question. So tell us a little bit about how does it differentiate these two models?
Well, tutoring is really all about helping with homework. So somebody's looking for a math tutor, they find somebody who knows how to tutor Algebra 1, kid brings their homework, you help them step by step, they get their homework done, maybe they get a decent grade on a test, but then they forget it, they don't remember it. So what I do is I look at all of the things that are needed to be successful in school. And the last thing is the curriculum and the content. Students need to feel connected. They need to feel comfortable. They need to have those social and emotional skills. They need to have the executive functioning skills. They need to know how to find what they need. And then they need all of the foundational knowledge. So many times schools move so fast, or pandemics, absences, teacher shortages, there's so many reasons that kids miss those foundational skills. And it doesn't matter how much homework help you give them in algebra if they don't understand decimals, percents, and fractions. So if a parent comes to me needing help with Algebra 1, I'm going to help with Algebra 1, but I'm going to find where are those fundamental gaps and fill those gaps so that they can continue and not need me.
Yeah, that's very important, that independent part.
Yes,
Otherwise, yeah, go ahead.
Very individualized and customed for each child. I have structures that work, but there's always differences. It's never exactly the same for every child, because no two brains are alike.
No, they are unique. Yeah, it's like the fingerprints. Right? Yes, we all have our own prints. So for a parent who's listening now, what would be a good tip you can give them when their child is struggling math or science or even learning, right? Learning to learn, because we always teach kids, you know, what to learn, but how to learn and how our brain works is hardly ever mentioned. Even we don't even talk about our brain. Maybe if you take biology, you will learn some parts of the brains, but otherwise it's nothing. So in your practice, that's your, you know, most important part is centering, learning to learn, getting into the state.
Yes.
And how do you also bring the parents into it? It's a holistic model. So let's talk about it and give me a tip. What can
the way I involve parents, again, it depends so much on the child and the situation. Oftentimes what I end up telling parents is help learn your child's system. Don't give them a system. I'll develop it, or develop a system, or when.
I love that. I love that. Learn your child's system.
Yeah.
Not give them a system. Because when you're giving a system, you're forcing it.
Yeah.
But if you learn your system, you can tweak it with them.
Exactly. By learning your child's system, you're giving them autonomy. You can then make helpful suggestions. Follow up, help them recognize and use their system. And then they'll be so much more willing to modify and change and find things. If you expect a system or a new strategy to work immediately, or it's a failure, it's going to fail every time. Part of it is seeing how, if I had done this, then this wouldn't have happened. It's not, if you don't do this, this will happen, because kids they have to experience it. They have to believe it. One thing that is just a very common reason that students struggle, especially with ADHD or executive functions, or all kids, is just the organization and making sure that they've done the work they need to do. What teachers assign is intentional. There's an order to it. There's a reason. There's a method. And to get the benefit of the education, the child needs to participate in that. And to do that, they need to be able to visualize what they're doing, what they need to do, how to manage their time. And that is a skill that's hard to learn anyway. And now we're so reliant on online platforms that take away our need to or our ability to learn to visualize. So students need to keep a planner or an agenda that they write, that they keep, that they can go verify online, but that has to be theirs, because there's not an online portal for your life. And what I suggest to parents who are really just getting started, make it as simple as can be. Rip out any page in that planner you don't need. That's just a distraction. Use a month view this is when I get a lot of pushback from parents, is they're like, well, they need to write more. They need the week view. My suggestion is, when you're starting, a lot of kids don't have a sense of time. If it's not right in front of them, they don't see it. They need to see that there is a kind of a method to the reasoning. You don't take the test and then go back and do all your makeup work. So I suggest a simple month view planner when you're just getting started.
And getting that habit, right? It's the installation of that habit first. Because if you make it too much work, getting to a weekly view or even daily view, now I have to do a lot of work. I might just push back and say, I don't want to do this. So getting them to just used to it, and then maybe adding that step by step is great. And you really focus on the ADHD, the executive functioning, because, you know, in some ways we all have some of it. It's a spectrum, right? It's not like you're ADHD or not. I have some things that I need help with too, and you have too. So when a parent find out, you know, you've done lots of IEPs, seen lots of IEPs, it's a, you know, it's a document that's very shocking. It's a new thing that you have to implement. So what would be your suggestion for parents to understand and implement and keep it consistent? I find that, you know, over the years, there's a break between what happens at school, what happens at home. Now we're putting the child in the middle, clashing with two worlds. So how would they need to take the IEP and do the implementation? There's something that comes their way.
I say consistent communication with teachers. Make sure that the teachers understand your child's needs. There's a lot of things that schools should do or could do There's a lot of things that you might think your school's doing. Send an email to each of your child's teachers at the beginning of the year, beginning of the semester, and just give them a little bit of information about your child. Say, I'm Lisa's mom. She does have an IEP. Here's some of the things that we have found have worked or that past teachers have tried that didn't work. Sometimes that's as useful to get it really on the teacher's radar, especially when a new semester is starting. They might have 160 kids, 20 of who have IEPs, all of which are many pages long. Yes, they need all that. They need the information in there. Is it more helpful if you can give them the bullet points to get started and pull out what you want them to know? It's very useful.
Yes. So send them an email.
Mm-hmm.
So what if the teacher's not implementing the stuff there? Do you go directly to the admin and complain? Would that be the right route? Or in your experience being a teacher, what would you have appreciated that parent did first before they went to the administrator? Was there a route that you can suggest?
Partnership and collaboration. So function from, and this can be very challenging. I am the mother of 2 special needs children, and I have been very unhappy and very upset at times and very tempted to send emails that I have received as a teacher. And I don't. It's about collaborating with the teacher, coming from the place of we're all in it for the best interest. It took me many years to understand why certain things are in an IEP. There were things that I'm like, this is not fair. I don't think that's right. It honestly doesn't matter what the teacher might think of an IEP, and they may not have had experience. They may think what they're doing is the best. So it's reach out to the teacher, come from a place of curiosity. Why are you doing it this way? Oh, well, that's not going to work for my child because. Now, if you've reached out to the teacher and there's nothing happening, then it is very appropriate. You're your child's best advocate. Go up the ladder, but always start with the teacher and come from a place of good intention and collaboration.
Yeah, very important, because at the end of the day, this is something I'm going to keep reminding the parents who are watching, is that the child has to still go back to that classroom. They are going to be with that teacher. Now that you upset them or you're in a war, now you're putting in the child in between that war. It's not a good energy for them to be inside of either, right? So as a mom of 2 kids, when we get mad, we might want to write an email with the furious hands, right, in mind. But I think one of the other strategies we can learn is to put all of that in a document, but like a Word doc, or even write it in an email format, but don't send it. Leave us some time, walk away, and then readjust that email with that, as you said, that good intention, and remind yourself, my son or daughter still has to be part of this classroom. Unless you want to just take them out and never be part of that. I would not recommend sending it with all that energy, right? Upset energy, because it's just not going to work, because they're not going to receive well. Yeah.
Those are all very great suggestions, Kohila. And I always put it in the perspective of, I've received these emails, and I've received some very disheartening emails for kids that I was losing sleep over. And like I said, as a parent, I understand.
But as a teacher, it's hard. As a teacher, it's really hard.
Exactly. So when there are times where when I'm the parent side of this, I will usually write an email and ask for a phone call, because when you're having a conversation face to face or just over the phone, you remember that you are dealing with a person, and it's really hard to convey partnership and genuine good with a difficult topic in an email.
Yeah, because you're missing the body language. You can be a mom in tears, but the teacher doesn't see that. They're just seeing all these words that are, being written without any body language, So that's why in person, is very important. So let's move on to your, the way you teach math, you're doing some science, you're doing these, we were earlier talking a little bit about installing new operating systems, because you're all about systems, because that's what you were doing when you were young, and creating systems. So tell me about some of the pillars that you use, and what makes it so, that's what makes the positive results for the students, right? They get it fast, and they see results, they're confident. So tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, I have three main systems that I really focus on. One of my systems is the barrier breaker pillar, and it is helping students identify, because if they can't identify future barriers, they can't break them down. Identify barriers that are preventing them from learning or getting what they need. Sometimes it is you need to learn your multiplication facts. Sometimes it's you don't have a dedicated study space at home, so you can't get into your mind's best work. You can't get into the best zone to do work, or where you're seated in the classroom, or the way you organize. So there's just so many different barriers that we don't realize are preventing us. So helping students identify what those barriers are, and then make a plan to overcome them.
Mm-hmm.
And this allows students to become more confident, empowered. They're developing resilience and problem-solving skills that's going to benefit them not only in the classroom, but almost more importantly in their life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what else do you use with kids who have no, because, organization is huge, right? And distraction, we're all distracted, not just the kids. As parents, we're distracted, teachers are distracted, because it's a distracted world right now. So tell me, how do you get them to that level of focus? And then that accountability part to learn.
It's really about having students set their intentions and then create a plan to get to those intentions. So sometimes it might be like, we have figured out that it is best for you to come home and do your work right away. Or sometimes you need a break. We need to find that zone, that time that's best for students to get into that flow state. And then to have like some kind of ritual when it becomes time to settle and work and focus. So different mindfulness activities, breathing, types of music, the priority that you do things. Some students check off a few things at the beginning. You feel like you're getting on a roll. Others, let's work on that hardest thing first. So it's really about trying different things, and then where you feel the success, expanding on those.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So let's touch on, as a holistic neurogrowth learning success coach, how are you bringing in the parents? Because a lot of the time parents do need help if they do have a learner who learns differently at home. And if there's homeschooling, especially, you take in the job on, but then you realize that there's things that you need to modify because every child's different. So how do you bring them into your coaching practice so you have a team effort?
I bring them in at the beginning before we even start. Everybody needs to have clear, established goals for what we're doing. We're doing whatever is needed, but we need to know what we've decided that is and make sure we are all working toward that. So if we're starting, if I'm working with a student, we're starting to coach, and I realize something's not working and the right thing to do is change, which I wouldn't be able to do in the classroom, I would reach out to the parents. I'd have a conversation with them. We would learn about why and how we're going to try it, and make sure that everybody's on board and that is still working toward the common goal. And sometimes it's me telling a parent, like, I've got this. I don't want you to sit down and do your math homework with your child. I've got this. This is my thing. You get to be the parent at dinner time. Other times it might be your kid needs a little bit more support from you. Here's what they're telling me. So it's really making sure that I have shared goals with the parents, communication, they know what's happening. They know that they can ask me for something if they think their child needs something, and just constant open communication.
Mm-hmm. Very important. And if you are talking to a student, one of your students, What would you tell them if they're struggling and they have a label? A lot of the time, labels help in the school system, but they also sometimes become some kids' identity. So that's where the label can go both right and the wrong way. In the system, if you don't have a label, you don't have assistance, you're left to be on your own. So you do need a label. But then when you become associated with the label, I have ADHD, I have autism, I have this, I have that, and you have ADHD. So how does the child balance that, and how can they balance?
It's really helping the child understand what the label does in the real world. You're right. In school, it is important to get assistance, to get the IEP, to ensure that of the 160 students, that your child's still getting what they need. In the world, it is helping you find the path faster. So I know that I struggle with ADHD. I have learned about what ADHD is so that when I need a new system, I'm probably going to pick the one that works faster because it gives me a guide of what to try first. So it makes no difference. Every single person's brain is different. What works for every single person is different. So it doesn't change the way I work with kids. It changes the guide we follow. But in the world, there could be a label for everyone.
Yeah, because with our personality, we can have labels too, right? And this and that and this. So what about how parents let's give parents a tip. How can they, if a child keeps saying, I had students come into my, office sometime and they would tell me, I have learning disability, sorry. So it was like a badge. I'm like, that's great. Let's see what systems and what things we can work on. It's the way you learn. Let's look at how you learn, So what about for parents? It's hard because if the child start using it as a badge to get out of things because they learned that this is working, how can they help the child get out of that?
I think it's really important that the parents check their feelings about the label, and that it might be really hard. It was very hard for me as a parent to get a 60-page report about all the things that my child struggles with. I felt very defeated. I had to check my feelings and my emotion before communicating it with my child. It needs to be framed in that positive way. So I think if your kid is newly diagnosed with dyslexia, the kid already knows. They know that they struggle. It's not a bad thing that they can now come to understand it. It might be hard for you to hear as a parent. So accept it, check your emotions, and let your child know. Don't make it a big deal, because it oftentimes comes with a sense of relief. It's like, oh, there's a reason why this is hard. And then you can use that relief to build that confidence, find those strategies, and empower them, instead of, you have a disability, this is going to be really hard, this is really bad, no, use it as a time of empowerment.
Very, very good. Thank you for that. So if a teacher is listening to us now, because our show is going to be viewed by a lot of different people, so I like to bring in the perspective, because you have that perspective, you were in the classroom. So they're trying everything. There are some teachers, I'm not saying every teacher is equal, but there are some teachers, they're trying their best, but they're trapped in a system that their hands are tied to help many of our students. What can they tell themselves in that situation? Because February, you were one of those teachers feeling that frustration as well, right?
I think a lot of it is, just like I said about parents, kind of checking your emotions and what you can be portraying onto your kids. Same thing with teachers. So teachers are doing the best that they can, given the circumstances. So I think teachers need to really give themselves grace so that they're able to do what they can in the classroom. And if one of your students has a learning success coach, view us as a partner, because I know how challenging it is. I'm excited to take something off of your plate, have a child in your room with systems that are working, or with that foundational knowledge, so you can help another child fill in some of those gaps. Or you can see a system that works and start implementing it in your classroom. Like I want to take something off of your plate, so work with us. We are not there to make your job harder. We are there to make your job easier and to help with the success of all of your students by helping some of your students.
Absolutely. And let's go to now the administrators. I know you didn't have a good time with in some of them, they didn't give you that respect for, what you were doing. So, a lot of the time, as you said, the word boss, it is what it is at the end of the day. And parents need to understand that for a teacher, their boss are the administrators, the boss are the policymakers. So it's, it doesn't matter whatever curriculum is get changed, you got to implement it in the time given. If your child is weak and fallen behind, it doesn't matter. We just have to keep going and going and going. And we have to test at the end of the day, because that's what we're there for. So what can you tell the administrator to understand about the teachers and the situation in the classroom? Because they don't see it every day, right? They just come in once in a while and drop in and make decisions.
Exactly. One of the things that I often think about is how long it has been since an administrator has been in the classroom. In 15 years that I've been in the classroom has completely changed. So
can I ask you, as a parent, what changed? Because I'm curious now as a parent, what change did you see in the 15 years?
The teacher's freedom and ability to modify what needs to be done, changes, just constant changes in curriculum, where as soon as teachers start getting good at something, or a system or something starts working, or we don't even know if it's working yet, but we're given something else new. So I think teachers' autonomy of their classrooms have really, really gone away, as well as behaviors are increasing. And I think behaviors are increasing for many reasons. One of them being teachers aren't able to adapt to what needs to be done early on. So then there's learning gaps that are then going to add to behaviors. And it's just a snowball effect. So I would like to administrators, trust your teachers, set guidelines, but allow flexibility within the guidelines. Allow teachers to be creative, allow them to try something. And I say that also knowing that administrators also have a boss. That is such a huge part of education. So I think it's important for teachers as well to give that grace that we want from our parents to our administrators, because just like our hands are tied from our administrator, a lot of times their hands are tied too.
There's a lot of burnout too in the administrators world as well. Their hands are tied in many situations.
Because like I said, I function from the place that everybody has children's best interest in mind. And it's very frustrating when you can't act on that, no matter what level you're at.
Let's talk a little bit about the behaviors. So we have all these kids in one classroom. There's varying abilities and learning needs. We're delivering to one mass one way. So where does this behavior stem from? What is the reason that behaviors are escalating in the classroom? Why?
The different needs of kids, the individual needs of kids are changing. They're becoming, they're more diverse. There's more needs. And when kids' needs aren't being met, there's going to be increases in behavior. If you're going to math class every day and you are so bored and you have no idea what's going on, you're not going to sit there the whole time and many students would not sit there and be quiet the whole time, and they're bored. They're going to act.
I want to move. I want to look at my phone because I'm bored.
And then that takes the attention of the teacher, and then more needs aren't being met. So it's one of those snowball effects it wasn't created by the pandemic, but it was definitely magnified greatly by the pandemic. And now I'm working with kids at the middle school level who really missed, by no fault of the teachers, really missed a lot of those basic foundational things.
especially in subjects like math and reading.
Yes.
Has fallen a lot. So let's give some tips to parents about if they do have kids who have, fallen behind, or they're not at the level of their classmates. Because if you're in the traditional school, you have to get them up to that level. Otherwise, they're just falling day by day. Their motivation, they're struggling as a student internally. Who wants to sit and get bad graded papers, right? It doesn't do anything for your mindset. So how can parents help their kids, to move them forward if there's 3 years, 2 years gap?
Parents need to recognize that schools aren't able to do it all. Teachers or parents need to invest in finding what those gaps are and filling them. Sometimes they might be equipped to it, other times they're not. So it's finding somebody who is equipped to really identify those foundational things so that your child can have choices later in their life. They've got to have those foundations, or it just crumbles and choices are taken away from them.
And when you mean invest in time to sit.
Sometimes it might be investing in that time. It might be investing in somebody else. If I know for me, my child has her own learning success coach, because for me and many children and many families, my child is going to receive this information and this support better from somebody else with that coaching relationship instead of the mother-child relationship. I also know that I work better with other people's kids because I have that mother-daughter relationship with my child. It's harder. It takes more time than it would. So sometimes the best option, I think oftentimes the best option is really find that person that is going to connect and fill those gaps with your child so that you can foster your parent-child relationship.
Absolutely. So as a mom with 2 kids who needs, different needs in your family, how do you balance it all, Lisa? Because that's something parents struggle with as well, right? It's too many things going on. So how do you self-care for yourself? As parent, mom or dad, we need to care for ourselves.
I implement the same things I tell to do with my students. I have worked hard to develop, and I'm always modifying different systems in my household. There needs to be specific times for parents to take care of themselves. You're a better parent if you take that time either away from your child or take that time with your child, not just being with your child, not time spent doing homework, not time spent doing chores, but do what rejuvenates you, because it makes the time that you do have with your children and the decisions you make regarding your children better.
You can't serve from empty cups. If you have to fill your soul as a mom and a dad before you can.
Your kids feel it. Your kids feel the energy. You might think you're really good at hiding it, but if you're burning out, your kids know it. And if you have that positive energy, your kids feel it.
Yes, absolutely. Energy is everything. So tell me, how important is parents to share if they had some disability, themselves, or ability? It's not really disability. In the real world, it's a disability, but actually ADHD is an ability, because you have different ways to think that nobody else does. It's a superpower in my mind. But how should a parent share that with their kid, that like you did at the school system?
I say definitely. That's the best way to just create a culture of acceptance and willingness to learn and connection and credibility. Like, I think it's beautiful when students and parents learn to advocate and own who they are. Like, we are all proud of who we are, and the way our brain works is part of who we are. And that, I think it's a beautiful thing to share and be able to have that empathy and that connection with your child and with other. It's amazing.
And do you use the label? Would you use the label, or do you just say it as my brain works this way?
I do it both ways. For
'Cause-
my child with ADHD, I name it because she's going to school hearing that label and she needs to know what that means. And okay, mommy too. And then mommy talks about it this way, as ADHD means it's the way our brain works. Our brains work sometimes different. But I don't know. Focusing on the label is not necessary. But if they're hearing it at school, they need to see that the connection's there.
Yeah, and also normalizing it.
Yeah.
The more you talk about it, it just becomes like, yeah, I have ADHD, but I think differently. At the same breath, if we can say that, I have great systems I've implemented because I have ADHD, because my brain works differently.
And amazing things have happened in my life because I have ADHD. Like my daughter is adopted, and sometimes it takes families, they say, a minimum of 6 months to do a home study, and sometimes it takes 2 years to get everything in place. My ADHD allowed me to hyper focus and do it in 1 week.
Nice.
There's amazing things about it. Now, what you had said made me think of what I've been learning. I am not an autistic person, so I do not speak from the autistic point of view. But once my son was diagnosed with autism, I did a lot of research, and I think the best way I can support my child whose brain works in a way that I don't understand because my brain is different. I listen to people who live with the lived experience. And it is becoming more and more of a trend within the autistic community to name yourself as an autistic person, because that's who you are. It's just a part of your identity. It's the same as like you are Kohila. And that is interesting because we've often heard child first language, but so much of how our brain works can be viewed as an identity.
Yeah. And that's why we name our brain, right? In our programs.
Yeah, exactly.
It has a name. It has its own name because that brain works.
And our brain tells us so many things. We need to train it to tell us nice things.
Yes, and be in control of it, because you have to control it, not allow it to control you, right? So it's very important.
Yes.
Do you want to add anything, Lisa, now that we're coming to the end? Anything that you want to leave as your last?
I really want to thank you for having me here today. And I want to remind parents, administrators, students, we're all in this difficult journey together. There's lots of disagreements. There's a lot of problems in education, but let's all continue to come from a place of what can we do best for kids.
Yeah, love that. Love that. I always say we have all these group of people working around this child, and the child is in the middle of it. How we act, behave, how we talk to each other, they're always watching, right? We can teach them so many things during that time of conflicts that we have with each other as well. So they're watching, and ultimately they're the one who will be hurt. Like you said, they are the most precious people that we have to take care of, because if that young mind finds out that, you know, people are against me, people don't like me, people don't care about me, then our brain will start making stories, and that's not good for any children, right? That's why a lot of children go into different, you know, paths. They choose paths that are not healthy for them too. So it's very important, as you said, everyone involved. That's the most important person in this whole equation. So thank you, Lisa. Thank you so much for sharing everything you did today. And thank you for being authentic and open, sharing about yourself, about your kids, because that's what this world needs to hear. We don't need to hide it. That's the old world where we all hide and we all pretend like everything is fabulous. And we come on, you know, pretending like we have a fabulous life and everything is fine, because when we suffer in our private world. But it's not healthy. We got to help each other. So thank you for sharing.
Exactly. Thank you so much for having me and allowing me to share and giving a platform for that and a way to help more students to reach more.
Yes, we have our goal of reaching 1.5 million students before 2035. That's our holistic view for mission for all of our coaches. So thank you for parents for watching this, and all of the other people like teachers and students. If you're in this watching us, we really know that you have the, oh yeah, I forgot to ask, what would you tell your students? Give them something before you go. That would be good.
Believe in yourself. You are fully capable, and you can, and believe in yourself. You deserve to get what you need.
Love it. Love it. And ask for it.
Yes.
Yeah, stand up for it. Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much, Lisa.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Our purpose for this episode was to spark a reevaluation of the current education system. For more episodes offering practical and comprehensive strategies to enhance learning, please visit www.learningsuccessacademy.com. It is crucial to ensure that children have access to the holistic neurogrowth learning approach, enabling them to break free from the constraints of an outdated educational framework. This is your opportunity to gain insight and break away from a flawed system, setting your children on a path to lifelong success that truly nurtures their thirst for knowledge. That's all for now. We look forward to having you join us for the next episode.